I'll do. Got another quite important story here to go through, and it is about a doctor, a foreign trained doctor, who has been, I must be very clear, he's not found guilty of anything yet, but he is being accused of sexual impropriety. So the family doctor, 47, accused of sexually assaulting 5 women, told cancer-stricken patient, "I'm helping you," as he groped her breasts and exposed himself during consultation, court hears. Now we have to be very clear, this is an ongoing court case, so this man is not guilty, although I will not be surprised if he is found guilty because there is a number of people involved in this, victims or alleged victims up to now, who are completely non-connected. So I would find it incredibly strange if a multitude of various patients will have put complaints in against this individual for nothing more than, I don't know, racism or whatever reason. It would be very, very, very strange for that to be factually correct. But I must once again stress this man is innocent until proven guilty. A family doctor sexually assaulted 5 female patients, one of whom was a terminally ill cancer sufferer who he told, "I'm helping you," as he fondled her breasts, a court heard today. That is really, really specific thing to say as well. Very. Again, I'm no expert in this. I've not been involved in any sort of case. I'm not sat on a jury or anything either. But that just seems very, very specific for somebody to say out of the blue. The patient has since passed away, but told a palliative care nurse how GP Mohan Babu had complimented her on her breast, exposed himself and groped her during a string of consultations about her pancreatic cancer. Now, again, that would be such a weird thing for somebody who was terminally ill and in palliative care to come out with. I genuinely could not imagine a situation where somebody who is on their deathbed lying about something as serious as that, because they have absolutely nothing to gain from it whatsoever. In fact, I would imagine it would be somebody's sort of last dying hope of getting some sort of justice for themselves, even if they're not there to witness it. But again, I must stress, this man hasn't been sentenced. No judgment has been passed on him. So it's only fair that we do let justice prevail. A receptionist Babu had worked with at a previous surgery also told police how the doctor of 20 years once grabbed her and declared he was a lion going to eat her. That on its own, it depends on how he's grabbing her. I'm not saying that's appropriate, by the way. I'm not trying to say that wasn't unpleasant for the lady. On its own, I don't think that would be necessarily the worst thing in the world. But I think it does lead, I think, with more serious allegations to a pattern of behaviour. And I do believe it is important that is brought forward. As I say, in and of itself, yeah, it's something very uncouth. It's not really something you should do. It's a bit of a social faux pas, especially now. Maybe 20 years ago, it wasn't really that. People were just, oh, whatever. I'm not saying that justifies it, by the way. But, that is the reality of what life was like 20 years ago, for better or for worse. Again, but I don't know exactly how he grabbed her. I don't know how aggressively. Did he pin her against the wall? Was he holding her down in a chair? Or was it just like sort of, grab, just maybe slightly touching on her arm? Oh, I'm a lion and I'm going to eat you. Ooh, being a bit playful. Who knows? I don't know. There's a lot to read into that. And without more detailed facts, can't really say whether. But again, obviously this lady has found it very unpleasant, and it is important that she does bring it up because, as I say, it does show a pattern of behaviour. Jurors were told the 47-year-old allegedly began targeting the patients, the youngest of whom was 19, at Staunton Surgery in Haven, Hampshire, in 2019, a year after he joined as a locum. He was recommended by his wife, Dr. Aroline Rodriguez, 43, who is a GP at the surgery. Prosecutor Miranda Moore, KC, said Babu was the most complained about doctor at the surgery and had repeated warnings over his behaviour. Yeah, so we are really seeing a pattern of behaviour in, and obviously at a GP surgery. There may be some people, I guess, there who know each other, but if you're getting multiple people complaining, it sort of does start to suggest that there is something going on here. I also believe as well that in the region, about 73 to 75% of all doctors who get struck off are foreign trained doctors as well. So this is obviously, now that does sound like a lot, but if you say, I don't know, 75% of 10, it's not a big number, so a percentage can make a small number sound a lot bigger than it is. So I don't think the overall number of doctors getting struck off every year is very high. I think it's in the region of, I think, 100 or two, maybe 200 a year possibly. And we're talking like there's thousands and thousands of doctors, so it's a very small number of people, and and like with any large organisation or grouping of people, there's a large turnover as well. So you have people retiring, new people starting. So it's not like it's always the same people either. People move away, more people move to the country, blah blah blah. So yeah, 75% being foreign trained does sound like and it is a disproportionately large ratio of those people getting struck off, but the actual overwhelming number isn't high. I mean, again, it is something that's important. It does need to be looked into, and definitely needs to be part of, think of immigration checks with doctors coming over. However, I must also say, last year, one of my children, my son, he banged his face on a glass table. Really, really hurt. So he ended up having to have stitches on his lip and a tooth pulled out. Now, one of the doctors who saw him that night, she was an African doctor, junior doctor, absolutely wonderful woman. Did a very professional job. Can't complain about her at all. Very, very professional. The on-call surgeon who came to see my son, the consultant, that evening at the hospital, he also too was a foreign doctor. I believe he was Indian. Fantastic gentleman. Very, very professional. Gave an excellent opinion. And although he didn't do anything that night, because he didn't want to he was happy that the injuries were stable enough to wait until the next day when he could be seen by the day staff. And unfortunately, had to be at a different hospital as well. And again, at the other hospital where my son got his surgery, one of the surgeons, one was English, and another surgeon, I don't know exactly where he was from, but I think he looked Persian. So maybe, maybe from sort of Iran, or, maybe, I don't know, Iraq or somewhere like that. Again, very, very professional man. Both of them, very professional, very polite. Did an excellent job on my son. Cannot complain whatsoever. I have no problem at all with foreign doctors working here. However, there is a problem with standards in some foreign countries and with some cultures being different. And that's not to say that all people from different countries are all bad people. However, the further away you get from where we live, the more the cultures change, and the more certain behaviours are what would we say, maybe what we would find acceptable aren't necessarily unacceptable to all people in those countries, especially when you're getting right towards like the Far East and Middle East countries. And now there are obviously people from those countries who would find certain behaviours disgusting, but those disgusting behaviours are far more prevalent, included in the educated classes, because they're just totally different cultures and countries to ours. And they also view people who aren't the same as them as different as well. And that's something that people in the West can't necessarily get their head around. Portsmouth Crown Court heard 5 other women, including the receptionist at his former workplace, complained about over his familiar behaviour. However, criminal proceedings had not been brought about with these complaints. Again, familiar behaviour, and I'm not trying to justify his behaviour, but being overly familiar, again, that can not necessarily where he comes from be a bad thing where he is from. I don't know what this man has done. Obviously, there's the big claim at the very beginning. That is absolutely wrong. But being a little bit touchy-feely in some countries is just normal. And again, I'm not trying to justify that, and I'm not trying to victim blame here either. Because he should absolutely not be doing that as a doctor. And again, this should be part of the process of hiring people from abroad, is checking out just what sort of behaviours these people do have and what they find acceptable and what they don't. 9 women from the same surgery and a receptionist from his previous surgery. There's a pattern, Ms. Moore said. Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, that's also what I said. It absolutely is a pattern of behaviour. And we should really be screening people for cultural compatibility when we're bringing these people over, especially in these sorts of very, very sensitive access area jobs, such as being a GP or being a paediatrician or things like that. Teachers, everything. In 3 appointments with a 57-year-old cancer patient this summer, Babu was said to have behaved inappropriately. At an initial appointment about her cancer, Dr. Babu greeted her by saying, "Do you want a hug?" Again, very, very inappropriate. Really shouldn't be asking that. However, and again, I'm not trying to defend him, but where he is from, that may be acceptable and normal, being overly familiar. I can't comment on whether that is the fact or not. I am trying to be a bit reasonable with this, as he has. But again, that should be part of the interview process to try and find out things like that those kinds of behaviours, because he clearly isn't compatible with British medical moral framework. At a follow-up appointment, he has to check her breast and told her, "You have a lovely figure and lovely breast." I mean, again, that's absolutely not acceptable for a doctor to be doing that or saying that if he has said that. I have to be very clear on that because it's an ongoing case if he has said that. And that really is not compatible with the way that medicine is practiced over here. It's just totally unacceptable. Miss Moore, KC, said the woman visited Babu for a third time as she had to cancel a holiday due to her illness and needed a doctor's note. She said he instructed her to lie on the couch to listen to her heart, Miss Moore, KC. I mean, I'm very surprised that this lady's carried on seeing this gentleman with if this kind of behaviour has been going on. Again, I don't want to. Unfortunately, this woman is deceased, so she can't answer these questions, which is very tragic and sad for the family, and I am sorry for the family's loss on that. But I am curious to know why she wouldn't have demanded a different specialist or doctor instead. I personally would, and I would absolutely demand not to see that person ever again with these things. Obviously, she can't answer that. She's not here to, and it's a very tragic thing that we may never know the answer to. He locked the door and didn't. She said, he instructed her to lie down on the couch, listen to her. He locked the door and didn't offer her a chaperone. He asked her to lift her top, and she asked why, and he said so he can check her lumps. But the court heard he lingered while examining her breasts and pulled her nipples, causing her to freeze. She must have been absolutely terrified. She'll have felt terrible anyway with how ill she was and very vulnerable. And then to have to expose her chest for the procedure, again, she'll have felt incredibly vulnerable. And then for him to, if he has done this, to have done that is incredibly predatory. And she must have been absolutely terrified with that. Babu then allegedly moved his hands under her skirt, and when she told him to stop, she noticed his zip was undone and he was aroused. If that's true, it's disgusting. And I do think if that is true, and he does get sentenced for this, I do believe that this again is a open and shut case for the justification of bringing back flogging. That kind of behaviour is predatory. Not necessarily if this man hasn't done it, but just that sort of behaviour in general is absolutely disgusting, and we really do need to start coming down on it really, really heavy, in my own personal opinion. We can't be tolerating that kind of disgusting, perverted behaviour. But obviously I can't say whether this man is deserving of that, as he hasn't been sentenced. The court heard at this point, Babu said to the uncomfortable woman, "I'm helping you. You need to touch it so I can help you." It was... that's just absolutely shocking if he did say that. It was hard. It was heard the woman asked the surgery to change a GP, but didn't report it to a female palliative care nurse until over a year later. Yeah, she must have been in absolute shock about it. I mean, I say, why didn't she ask to change a GP, or why did she not refuse to see him? But it must have... I suppose, to think about it, and I've had a little time for it to sink in my head, I guess she's gone through that much with being ill, and she's having to deal with knowing that she's probably going to die, which is a lot of stress. And then this is happening to her. She's probably thinking, my goodness, is this really happening, or am I going mad? You know, it was probably too much for her to actually even understand and cope with what was going on. So it's just an awful situation for somebody to be in if that has happened to her, obviously. I do lean towards that this has happened, personally, but obviously the case hasn't resolved, so we have to be fair in that regard. Some of you may disagree with me on that, but we have to. However, I do believe that with the amount of people who've complained about him, that more than heavily suggests and implies beyond reasonable doubt that he has engaged in these nefarious activities. An investigation commenced and it emerged many other women complained about Babu and asked for a new GP to replace him. Miss Moore Casey told the jury about the alleged sexual assaults that happened to 4 other patients. One patient, a 19-year-old girl, visited Babu on February 2020 as she was struggling with anxiety. See, again, if this is true, that's very predatory. You know, as a doctor, you'll understand the vulnerability of somebody with anxiety. He paid her compliments like, "You are a beautiful girl," Miss Moore Casey said. Now, again, that on its own isn't the worst thing in the world. I'm not saying it's medically professional. He absolutely should be saying that to his patient. Not the worst thing in the world. May make somebody feel a little bit uncomfortable, but it's the behaviour that then follows onto it. So it does suggest a pattern of behaviour and a lack of respect towards women who appear to be vulnerable, and he does appear to be predating on those vulnerable people. He listened to her chest from behind and counted the freckles on her back. 1, 2, 3, 4, while lightly touching her skin as he did so. That is That's really creepy. As she got up to leave, he took hold of her hand and kissed her on the cheek. Right, that is well over the line if that's true. You know what? But if this is real, I bet he wouldn't have done that if there was a male in the room with her. And again, this is part of the problem with a lot of these foreign males who come from rather patriarchal societies, where they do believe that unchaperoned women are basically free game to take advantage of, and they have absolutely no qualms about that in a lot of these countries. That's why we hear a lot about sexual assaults, and why a lot of these young girls from broken homes get predated upon by Pakistani, Bangladeshi rape gangs as well, because they just see them as fair game to be taken advantage of. It's part and parcel of the culture where they come from. He listened. Sorry, I've read that bit. From April to July 2021, a married mother visited Babu 3 times after a neck injury. In the first 2 appointments, Babu asked for hugs and told her she was cute. She thought the GP was just being nice. Yeah, you see, I mean, that's what I was sort of alluding to before. That some of these things, like calling somebody cute, again, it's not appropriate, and you shouldn't be doing it as a medical professional. I don't think it'd be appropriate really for anybody to call a married woman cute. It's a bit overstepping the line of decency and social respect. It is a very much social faux pas. However, for people from a different background and culture, it may not be necessarily seen as a negative thing, just a general compliment. But it's what then follows on after that, as I've already said. At the 3rd appointment, he asked her to take her top off and check her moles. Miss Moore-Casey said he smothered her breasts up and down about 20 times, she recalled, telling her it was lovely and smooth. He then made the wholly inappropriate comment, "Oh, I'm not having a bad day." Yeah, that is really, really naughty. The court heard Babu then hugged her for about a minute and asked for a kiss. She noticed his breathing was heavy, the prosecutor added. He's just in my opinion, if this is true, he is a very, very predatory individual who is abusing his position of not authority but trust. He's abusing his position of trust with people who are entering his surgery with their guards dropped in a very trusting manner to be treated and taken care of. It's almost like a parent and child relationship almost between a doctor and a patient, because people are incredibly vulnerable and they're incredibly reliant on the doctor, and it's almost satanic, abusing that position of trust really for one's own personal gratification. In one examination with the patient, Babu allegedly held her knee with one hand and used his other hand to cup her genitals and squeeze. Another patient with stomach issues was allegedly sexually assaulted twice in April 2021. Once when Babu touched her intimately, and once when she felt his penis against her hand. Again, we're seeing a pattern of behaviour here, and I am reading between the lines a little bit, but I'm guessing none of these patients know each other or have spoken to each other, and have possibly never even heard of rumours from other, like a friend of a friend, so to speak, sort of story. He denies 7 counts of sexual assault in relation to 5 patients, insisting he was being friendly and innocent. The 3-week trial continues. Before I carry on, I will just say I'll link the story below. I know with a lot of my videos, I do go off the handle quite a lot, and I get myself quite wound up, but I do believe in law and order. I do believe in the judicial process, and although I may criticise some of the results, somebody is innocent until proven guilty, and that is what separates us from, shall we say, less developed societies in the world. So we do have to respect that fact and not allow our emotions to run away with ourselves on such what is essentially a very sensitive case. I do hope the truth comes out. And if these people are victims of his crime, I hope this man gets the absolute book thrown at him, because if those things are true, then he is an absolutely disgusting pervert. I would say if it's proven that he's wholly innocent and this has been some sort of campaign of hate against him, I would say that those people should be made an example of. But I really, really doubt that's the case. I just can't see these different women from all these different backgrounds and even from different surgeries conspiring together to lie about this individual. I'll put my hands up and say I could be wrong there. Maybe some sort of magical evidence will come forward that will absolutely exonerate this individual. I highly doubt it, personally. That's just my opinion. But let's wait and see what happens, and if an update comes out to this case, I will do a story on it. If you found that interesting, intriguing, or you've enjoyed that story, please like, subscribe, put a comment below. I do like to read people's comments, and I do always try to get back to them. Thank you very much, and goodbye.